Me. Okay. Today is Saturday, the 29th, I think it is, of April. We're closing out the month. I just wanted to touch base with everyone before we started closing this radio up. There are some additional work that I did to this. I know in the last video I mentioned that we did an alignment on the FM portion, but it wasn't really there. I mean, it was not like it was on the other two radios. I would get some stations, and the other ones I wouldn't get that I normally would get. So I knew something was up in here, and I spent a few days trying to track it down. I tried to do a second alignment on it, and it just wasn't coming in. So for a while there, I wasn't getting hardly anything across most of the frequency spread on a thing, and finally what I did was I pulled all of these domino micas out and replaced them. These here are ceramic discs. I believe they are ceramic discs. I mean, they look like ceramic discs. I guess they had ceramic discs back in the late 40s. This one here was a mica that was in the discriminator circuit that I thought might be a culprit, because when I make the adjustment to either the primary or the secondary of the discriminator, it wasn't doing much of anything that I could tell. I mean, I could do a couple of turns on one or the other adjustments, and I wouldn't get much deflection in the meter, if any at all. So I decided to go ahead and replace that one. It looked, I don't know, kind of iffy to me. So I decided to go ahead. I did these, and might as well do that one and be done with it. These here, this must be a production change. I didn't see any wording in the sheet for this radio on this particular chassis, where they made a modification or a change in the type of capacitors that was in the circuit. These two came out of the first and second stage IFs on those BA6 tubes. 19 and 20, if you can see 20 right there, 19 and 20. That was these two. Now, in the other radios, if I remember correctly, they didn't have this phono plug or receptacle on the back of the chassis. That, I think, was a change. I don't know when it was made or whatever, but I did get the product. Let me get that sheet and show you what I'm referring to. Hang on, I'll be right back. Okay, let me get some light down here so we can see it. Changes in the V2118 chassis. This talks about all the adjustments they made to this chassis as opposed to the other chassis that I had done prior to this one. I don't remember if I did it. I'm sure I did one other one that had the receptacle on the back of the chassis for a phono power. But anyway, here is the list of things that they made the changes to. A phonomotor power socket was mounted on the rear of the chassis. But up here, this is all the components that were either changed or moved or eliminated. These are the additions to those parts lists in the other, on the other sheets. Okay. So, I went ahead, because on those, you remember me showing you those block dominoes that came out of here for the 7, 8, and 23 positions? Well, they also used them in the 19, 20, and one of the other areas, the 9. And I replaced those and those other chassis. So I decided to go ahead and put these, change these out also, even though they were disc. And I hear that they're supposed to hold up very well in circuits. So I pulled those. Now, why did I pull these? Well, on a sheet I have over there, plastered on the wall, it covers all the domino styled capacitors that were used and installed in a lot of the radios. And on one particular style, they show that if a dot in the first position is I think it's a silver dot. It could be a white dot, but it is a silver dot. It indicates that it is paper capacitor. Well, looking at these, with the heat, this thing is supposed to generate, supposed to use up 110 watts. At least that's what the sheet says. I couldn't believe it, because it produces a lot of heat, let me tell you. Especially with that 6L6 and that AZ4 tube. They're cranking out. I check them. I always check the temperatures of the tubes on all my radios. And when I check these, I think the power tube is putting out 325 degrees at the top of the tube. The rectifier tube, the AZ4, is putting out almost as much, and it's half the package that the power tube is. Now, each of the other tubes are pushing probably about 100 degrees to 140, 45 degrees. So, I mean, it's really putting out some heat, let me tell you. So, I went ahead and changed those out and made an adjustment to it, and I started getting a result on the a beneficial result on the FM band. So I went for an alignment on it, and it came out better. Now, what I did notice was on both the IFs, or all the IFs, the adjustments for those were out pretty well, but not as bad as it was for the adjustment for the oscillator, and the antenna adjustment for the tuner section on the FM. Well, when I turn them up, I'll cover that on you. I just don't want this. I want to keep this thing going to too much lengthy gabbiness and too much gabbiness. Here is the alignment instructions for the AM portion of the thing, and here it is for the FM. Now this is, somebody asked me, could I do a video on the alignment? Well, I decided to go ahead and do an alignment, a more detailed alignment procedure on perhaps maybe the Philco, because it's a little bit more straightforward. It's not as complex as this is. You have to tip the radio and everything else like that, and I didn't want to have to do that, and I wasn't really sure whether or not this one here was going to give me a doinkin in the bohunkas. So, long story short, what I did was I checked the voltages on all the tubes, and they were slightly high. I adjusted the voltages on the tubes for the first and second IF with the resistors on there. I made a change to those resistors and pumped them up a little bit to drop the voltages on them to more reasonable. They're still a little bit high, but not 20% high. Also, what I did was I added a voltage dropping resistor in here to bring it down a little bit more, because this thing was producing some heat. I checked the voltages and they're all within tolerance on all the tubes. However, I checked the watt meter over there, and it's pulling about 760 milliamps. Like I said, I put a 1 amp fast flow in the fuse holder to accommodate for any spikes. Well, it was still within reason. I check it out and it was only pulling like 80 watts. Well, the paper says it's designed at 110 watts total power. Well, I was shocked. So I figured, well, I'm going to put that in and bring it down a little bit more, because it is producing some heat. So the tubes are within reason of any of the other radios, and let me pull this down so we can get another look at this thing. These two barrels right here, this one here is for the antenna adjustment, this one here is for the oscillator adjustment for the FM. All the other adjustments for the alignment points for the FM are the bottom sides of these cans. On the top up here is for the AM, and on the bottom is for the FM, plus these two up here for oscillator and the other. Somebody must have tried to get the radio working previously and couldn't do anything with it, and they made adjustments to all of these and wiped out the whatever you could get. But on these, this one here was twisted in about halfway is more than what it is now. This one here was twisted in. Well, you can see how much pointiness is left of the center screw thing for the adjustment. When I backed these things out, wow, everything came back. So anyway, that took care of that. So now let's move on to another subject, and let me get set up, and we'll be right back. Okay, here is the inside of the cabinet. We got the AM antenna back installed on the cabinet, and we've got the bow tie in for the FM portion. The terminate right here. That goes right to the corner of the chassis over here. We got the sticker on the inside. The inside is all finished. Yeah, let's turn this thing around without scratching it. Okay, there it is. So far, it is looking pretty good. Okay, now the back panel, or should I say the dial panel, the grill panel, the speaker panel, take your choice. I'm waiting for fabric to come in. One has already showed up, and I want to make a comparison to the two before I make a commitment on which one I want to see on there. That fabric might not show up until Monday, so if Monday. So we're going to do that whenever, this next week, so we can get that chassis back in here so I can make final adjustments to it. So anyway, this video has gone way too long, so hang in there. We're going to get this one done, and we're going to move into something hopefully a little less tedious. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for hanging on.